Despite strides towards racial equality, interracial marriages can still be met with uncertainty from different groups even in 2022. The national spokesman for Jehovah Witnesses, Robert J. Hendricks, joins us to discuss interracial marriage and its presence within their community. Robert, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Now, can you talk about how interracial marriage can be successful despite, times of uncertainty and times where racial tensions continue to escalate within our society?
The foundation of every great relationship is love. And it's not the kind of love that you see in rom-coms and not the kind of love that you see on Instagram, but the kind of love that's based on principle. Love isn't a feeling. I mean, that's part of it. But love is a verb. Love is action. And action provides the basis, the very foundation for a successful marriage. The Bible calls love the perfect bond of union. And so when we love like that, when it's based on principle, not simply on I feel good today, so I'm going to love you, that this kind of love you can't fall out of. And it's based on a love of the principles in the scriptures. It's based on a love of God. And that foundation really helps to bring two people together. It bridges the gaps. It makes sure that two people truly become one. So that unit becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Together, they're stronger than they were when they were two individuals. They accomplish more. They can do things that are unthinkable for one individual. And so as we think about this whole point, bridging the racial divide, that's what does it. And that common love that you have for your Creator, and that being the most important thing in our lives, that's what really helps you to bridge any gap and overcome any stumbling block. It's really, at the end of the day, love.
Now, I guess that could kind of lead into my next question. Why are mixed marriages not uncommon for Jehovah Witnesses?
As Jehovah's Witnesses, I think the Pew Research Center says we are the most diverse religion in the United States. So it just makes sense that when you live together, when you grow up together, making that leap to an interracial marriage is rather just natural because, the problem with so many people, and it's not their fault, is that they grow up with one type of people. And when we think about our whole life is curated, right? It's curated by technology. So I curate my friends, those who are around me, who think like me, who look like me. But I curate the things that I read because Facebook doesn't allow me to see anything that I don't like or agree with. And all of a sudden, all you've got is one view of the world, one color in the world, one language in the world. But when you grow up as a Jehovah's Witness, it's so typical for you to be growing up with brown, black, all sorts of colors, all sorts of languages. I grew up in my congregation as a young boy. We grew up in mostly a black congregation. There were some Puerto Ricans. There were also those who were deaf, who we had to sign for them. Others had to sign for them. This was a community, and we grew up in that community. That community loved one another, and you didn't see people in color or language. You saw them for who they were inside. And so I think that basis of life in growth and growing up, even if you didn't come from an integrated community, you've gone to an integrated congregation that has really expanded your horizons and made you understand other people in ways that so few people, honestly, in this country get to understand.
Now, I like that you brought that up because I do think that in a lot of our communities, even in New York City, we're lucky to kind of be around different groups of people. But even within that, sometimes you can stay close to your community and you don't really get the chance to meet other people or understand different cultures. What would you say is a challenge for interracial couples or marriages when they're met or facing other people who are usually within the same community?
I think that it comes down to not thinking so much about yourself. When we think about ourselves, that's all we want to surround ourselves with is people like us. But I think we celebrate the diversity in our community. When we did what was called special metropolitan witnessing down in Bryant Park, and right now I live in Walk Hill, and I live among a diverse group of people. But there's nothing more diverse than standing on 42nd Street between 5th and 6th, and seeing all day and hearing all day different languages and cultures. And instead of saying to yourself, wow, why don't they speak English, or why don't they look like me? Getting to know each of these people, getting to know those types of people, making sure your feet are under their table, that you've embraced them. And when you get to know somebody, whatever color or language they speak, you get to love them. And you begin to love their culture, not just their food. You know, we're good with food, right? Everybody loves Thai food and soul food and everything, but the people behind that culture. And so even though in many ways Jehovah's Witnesses are very much the same when it comes to our beliefs, right? We still embrace each other's culture. We still love that about each other, and we don't want to homogenize that. And I think that's something to be celebrated, and that's a different view for many people in the world. You know, we have studied as congregations around the world, we have talked about the importance of welcoming immigrants, the importance of welcoming those refugees. And that's completely opposite. You get out of our congregation meetings and then you read the paper or listen to the news, and it's completely opposite to the world. So I think it's not just being among people, but it's getting to know them and getting to love them.
I think that was really cool that you mentioned that too, because I feel like as we talk about race more in our country, a lot of what you said, people said, you know, you should embrace the person behind the culture. So it's not just saying you love this type of food, but loving the person who's bringing that and sharing that with you. So I thought that was really cool. And I saw the connection between that. Now, if an interracial couple decides to pursue a relationship or a marriage, what would you say is something that they can do to prepare themselves for success?
You know, they need to talk. And first of all, they need to understand right off the bat that there are challenges, that not everybody around them will be happy, sometimes even family members. But they need to individually be firm in their own decision with each other. And the only way that can happen is real communication. You know, on dates and in movies and on Instagram, we think about people talking about the food that they like, the movies that they like, all the way they like to dress, the places that they want to vacation. Well, those are all good things, but you can get that done in a half an hour with somebody. But it takes many, many days, weeks, and even years to really understand the soul of somebody. And so on jw.org, there is, if you go down to the homepage, you'll see something on families. It'll be a box. It'll say for families and couples and families. And you go into that and you start talking about things like communication. You start confronting the issue of how are we going to feel when others jeer at us walking down the street in New York City, which has happened to my wife and me. How are we going to feel when my uncle doesn't come to my wedding because he doesn't agree with my choice? How are we going to deal with that individually? And you need to go through that up front. You need, and your response to those things and your response to problems in your marriage needs to become reflexive. You don't have to think, what should I do now? But you've already discussed it. You know what you're going to do. You have a plan of action, and that plan of action is to stay unified, to stay together no matter what.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to know what qualities are needed, and we talk about racial, but I guess just in any marriage, what qualities are needed just to be successful?
I think the number one quality outside of love is humility, and love and humility are very much linked. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 is talking about, that chapter is talking about Christ and how when he came, how he acted. The smartest, most powerful, most amazing person who's ever lived was the most humble person who ever lived. And it says in verse 3, it says to treat others as superior to you. Treat others as superior to you. That means there's no place for ethnocentrism. Yes, we're proud of who we are. We're proud of our heritage, but we don't lift that above others. That's how Jehovah's Witnesses have stayed peaceful and unified around the world. We're in 240 lands. And so we don't go in, and we don't think that U.S. or Mexico or Finland, we don't elevate country or ethnicity or language. We elevate the person. And if you start looking at a person as superior to you, you're going to look for the qualities where that person is actually better than you. And when you do that, you want to serve them, because that's what humility is all about. You want to learn from them. And in a marriage, that's an amazing quality, to be able to sit back and learn from your wife, who is very different from you, or her from her husband. And it's a beautiful quality that, you know what, makes people more lovable. And so it has that effect too. Not only is it better for the relationship, but it makes you more lovable. And so humility, I think, would be a key.
Now, what are some resources the Jehovah Witness offers that can help guide people with healthy family relationships?
My wife and I still each week we practice what we call a family worship time. And for many Jehovah's Witnesses, they look to jw.org. There's 200,000 videos, 600,000 articles, many of which are on marriage and family and communication, on dating and courtship and the proper attitude toward your wife and husband, on dealing with problems, dealing with addiction, all the things that we confront in marriage. And being able to look at those resources together on the homepage, going right down, just right down to the middle and seeing and clicking on that, those unlimited resources, it's really a treasure trove for those who want to make themselves better and also improve their marriage.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.